Are you a first-time photographer getting ready for your first event? Well, just a few days ago, that was me. I was invited to a friend's wedding and brought along my Sony A7C Mark II and the 24-70 G Master Mark II. Now, I wasn't the hired photographer for my friend's wedding. I really just wanted to take some pictures to help build my portfolio. What ended up happening was I was the only other person there with a full frame or pro level camera. On the wedding day, as soon as I walked into the venue, the two other paid professionals immediately noticed me and my setup. So we get to talking and it turns out we were all shooting Sony gear. One of the pros even jokingly said, "Hey, could you send me the RAWs later?" To which I hesitantly replied, "Sure." From there, we all go about our stations and start shooting away. One thing about the photos and video you'll see is that most of them are candid off-angle shots. And that is mainly because I didn't want to get in the way of the photographers that were being paid to be there. But still, in my head, I was treating this opportunity as a paid gig. Now, not only to build my portfolio, but to hopefully get my foot in the door with this photography company. And after shooting the entire event side by side with the pro crew, here are the 5 things that I learned that day that I think every wedding photographer should know. Number 1, speed. Speed is perhaps the most critical factor that can make or break your photo shoot. What I mean is, when your clients are having their special moments and you're in the background struggling with your settings, there's a high chance you will miss a good shot. So a couple things I did was to shoot in auto ISO. Therefore, I only had to control the shutter, aperture, and exposure comp. I prefer auto ISO because I have more control of the shutter speed. Sometimes in low light, the shutter will slow down significantly to bring in more light to achieve an even exposure. And this could potentially make your photos a bit blurry, even with the slightest amount of movement. Number 2, fitness. Fitness is another critical factor that you need to be aware of. So during this particular shoot, I did a bunch of squatting, crouching, sidestepping, and a bunch of yoga-esque like positions to achieve the desired shot. So if you're not agile and flexible, you may find yourself in situations you can't maneuver around, especially when there are tons of people in the crowd. So what I would do is maintain a basic level of fitness outside of shooting, which for me is no issue at all because of my martial arts training. Number 3, communication. Communication is such a huge factor when it comes to wedding photography. I feel like naturally couples will know how to look and smile at the camera, but they're not professional models at the end of the day. So I found it extremely helpful when I would communicate certain poses to my subject, and this allows more range and variety in the types of photos that you'll deliver. Alright guys, number 4, stability. When it comes to video, stability and the ability to hold the camera still was a huge factor. This is more geared towards people who don't use a gimbal and who are constantly running and gunning. For photo, you can oftentimes bump up the shutter to keep things sharp, but for video, it's important to maintain the appropriate shutter speed to create natural motion blur. Upon editing this video, I had to cut out a lot of jitters and shakes. So to save yourself the time and effort, once you achieve a scene or composition you like, hold the camera still for at least 5 to 10 seconds to give you some footage to play with. The 5th most critical thing you should know is that gear does matter. Or does it? So for this event, I shot exclusively with my Sony A7C Mark II and the 24-70 G Master Mark II. I thought the combo performed seamlessly and remarkably well. I will say that having a camera with dual SD card slots is the best option, but at the moment, I don't own any cameras with dual SD card slots. It's still possible these days to use 5 to 10-year-old cameras, but I will say that the technology is much better and easier to use with the newer cameras these days. Most importantly, I highly recommend the 24-70 G Master Mark II. That focal range is going to hit all 3 main compositions: wide, medium, and close. Wide at 24mm, 50 at mid, and 70 at close range. So guys, after my first wedding shoot, those are the 5 most important things I learned that day. From here, I hope to keep improving upon my craft and hope to share my progress and insights along the way. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.